My name is Sarah Linwood, 30 years old. I work from a one-bedroom apartment that smells faintly of printer ink and coffee, with spreadsheets open like skylights across my monitor. Typing, my sister Sarah calls it, the same way she once called my first real job, playing store, when I was 16, and buying my own socks because hand-me-downs arrived 2 years late and already thinning at the elbows. I'm a freelance accountant. Clients email, clocks tick, numbers have their own weather. I earn good money, I pay my taxes early, I drink water, I stretch. I do everything adults are supposed to do, except apparently the one thing my family swears defines adulthood. Clocking in at an office at 8 and clocking out at 6 to prove the day happened. Real work, my father says, knuckles on the table, as if time cards are sacrament. The last time we argued about it, he held his wristwatch to my ear like it could shame me with the sound of hours passing. I don't understand this computer nonsense, he added, which is something he says when he means, I don't understand you. Sarah is 37, with 2 kids, 9 and 10, good at soccer and bargaining. Emma is 33, with one 7-year-old who doesn't walk so much as bounce. They both have husbands, calendars full of PTA newsletters, weekends that only exist because I catch their children like falling plates. Somewhere along the way, Sarah works from home, melted into Sarah is available, and available hardened into law. I told myself I didn't mind. I told myself love looks like flexibility, like blowing on mac and cheese while an email from a client blinks red, like letting small hands tug at your sleeve while your brain tries to reconcile 2 mismatched columns. I told myself family is a kind of tax no one warns you about, hidden, compulsory, audited only when you refuse to pay. By December, I had plans, real ones. My friends, Katie, who orders soup like a ceremony, Jen, who never wears the right gloves, and Mike, who complains about altitude like it personally insulted him, booked a week at a mountain resort. I bought a ski suit whose zipper didn't belong to anyone else first. I stacked deadlines like firewood and burned through them. For the first time in years, the holiday didn't feel like a gauntlet. It felt like a door. Christmas Eve was at my parents' house, which always smells like cinnamon and the past. I arrived with wrapped gifts labeled in my neat accountant handwriting, all corners crisp. Only my parents were there at first, my mother humming while she moved ornaments that had already been placed. They'll be here eventually, she said, which in our language means late, but you won't say anything. Eventually turned into 3 hours, and then Sarah arrived in a gust of cold air and commentary, her husband Tom trailing with a casserole and the 2 kids already negotiating screen time. Emma came next, cheeks pink. Husband David carrying the 7-year-old Tyler, who immediately made a nest of the throw pillows and declared them a fort. The house filled with a storm of voices that rose and fell over me like I was furniture. Dinner tasted like tradition. Ham, mashed potatoes, the particular salt of swallowing words. I waited for a seam in the conversation to open. When it didn't, I tried to stitch one. So I actually have... How's the typing? Sarah said, eyes not leaving her phone. It's accounting, I said, and it's going... Mom clapped once, a sound like a cork. Perfect timing, Sarah announced, finally looking up with a smile that felt choreographed. We're flying to Hawaii tomorrow morning. The table lit up. Laughter, squeals, a chorus of "We deserve this." Mom's hands fluttered. Dad leaned back like the sun had come out. Names of beaches rolled across the table like pearls. I felt my stomach tilt. I asked the only practical question my stunned brain could form. What about the kids? Oh, we're dropping them at your place, Sarah said, as if stating a weather report. You don't mind, right? Just for a week. A week. In my one bedroom where I already sleep on an air mattress when they take my bed, where my office doubles as a hallway, where my heat runs loud as a train. You didn't ask, I said, hearing how small it sounded. Come on, Sarah laughed. You're always available. You work from home. Emma nodded, cutting Tyler's meat into compliant squares. Dad frowned, like he smelled something off. What plans could you possibly have? The old script. I explain. They wave it away. I justify. They label it selfish. I swallow. They call it grace. I felt the zipper of my new ski suit in my memory. Teeth bright. Promise locked. I put my fork down. My hands didn't shake yet. My voice did not ask permission to be heard. No. Silence widened. The kids' laughter in the living room swung back into focus, high and unbothered. Mom blinked first. What do you mean, no? I'm not available to babysit next week. The smile fell off Sarah's face like it had been balanced there. We've already booked everything, she said, voice sharpening. Flights, hotel. That's your problem, I said. You should have asked. Emma's eyebrows pitched into disbelief. Sarah, you don't have anything going on. You work from home. There it was. The sentence that opened every cage. I could feel my pulse pinch at my throat, but underneath it, another feeling bloomed. Something like clarity, something like standing on snow that holds you. I have plans, I said. Dad scoffed. You never go anywhere. Then maybe you never look. Sarah's hand smacked the table. The wine glasses jittered. You could ruin our entire vacation. You made plans that require my consent without asking for it, I said, quieter now, which somehow made everyone listen harder. That's the ruin. Mom's voice went tight, the octave she saves for disappointments. Family helps each other. When it's help, I said, not a habit. Emma's throat bobbed. She had tears ready like a trick she'd practiced. The kids love staying with you. They're kids, I said, not unkindly. They love wherever they're loved, but they're not mine. The room inhaled and didn't exhale. I could feel all the years they didn't see me stack up behind me like a spine. I pictured 16-year-old me handing over half my paycheck for Sarah's wedding because Mom said, that's what family does. I pictured my ex, Jason, leaving, and no one asking if I wanted tea, just asking if I could take Tyler Saturday. What has this family done for me? I asked, surprising myself with how level I sounded. Ask yourself that honestly. One thing that didn't come with a receipt. They looked everywhere but at me. Dad tried a new angle. Your sisters work hard. They have families to take care of. And I don't work hard? I don't deserve rest because I'm single? That's not what we're saying, Mom said, which in our language means it's exactly what they're saying. I stood because sitting felt like agreement. I'm not babysitting next week. That's final. Dad's command voice emerged, a relic from when I was small enough to be carried. Sit down. We're not done talking. Yes, I said, picking up my purse. We are. At the door, I hesitated. The tree lights blurred, a trick of the eyes I've known since childhood. Hold back tears. They settle into stars. I turned. Next time, I said, ask. Mom's mouth opened and closed like she'd lost her line. Sarah stared like I'd upended a table. Emma whispered, You're ruining Christmas, as if that were holy writ. I'm standing up, I said. You just don't like the view. Outside, the air bit clean. My hands shook only once on the car door handle. Somewhere inside me, a quiet voice took my name and held it up to the light like proof. Sarah. Not spinster, not sitter, not spare, Sarah. I drove home through streets that looked dipped in sugar. My phone pulsed on the passenger seat, missed calls curdling into a chorus. I didn't answer. In the elevator's mirrored walls, I looked like someone I might trust. In my apartment, I stood a while in the dark office, listening to the radiator hum. The air mattress leaned against the wall like a folded apology. I didn't unroll it. Something had shifted that would not shift back. I could feel it in my bones, in the way the room seemed suddenly the right size. If I was going to be punished anyway, I wanted it to be for telling the truth. Tomorrow, they would test my no. That's what happens when a habit meets a boundary. It pushes. I didn't know yet what I would write, only that I would leave a message they could not pretend to misunderstand. I turned on the lamp. The light fell over envelopes, a pen, a door I was almost ready to close. The morning after Christmas Eve tasted metallic, like nerves. I barely slept, replaying every word from the dinner table, every silence that followed, the look on Sarah's face when she realized I wasn't bluffing. My phone had become a tiny bonfire, calls, texts, notifications piling up through the night, but I hadn't touched it. Instead, I sat at my kitchen counter staring at a blank sheet of paper. If my words at dinner hadn't been enough, I needed something physical, something they couldn't twist or pretend not to hear. I wrote in block letters, neat as my accounting ledgers. I told you last night, I'm not available to babysit. I'm leaving for the mountains with friends. I won't be home until next Sunday. Stop assuming my life belongs to you. Sarah. I taped it to the outside of my apartment door. My hand trembled as I pressed the tape flat, but there was also a flicker of satisfaction, like carving initials into stone. It wasn't just a note, it was a boundary. By 6 a.m., I was dressed in my new ski jacket, Backpack zipped, suitcase waiting by the door. Katie texted, "We'll pick you up in 30. Bring extra gloves." I smiled. She knew me too well. But before I could lock up, the hallway outside filled with voices. Familiar ones. I froze, then peeked through the peephole. Emma, in a puffy coat, was whispering urgently to Sarah. Tom carried 2 overstuffed suitcases. Behind them, 3 sleepy kids clung to juice boxes. They really did it. Even after everything I said, they brought the kids. "Just leave them here," Sarah muttered. "She'll cave. She always does." My throat went dry. I pressed my back against the door, heart pounding. For a second, I thought they'd try the knob. Instead, Tom set the suitcases down by my doormat. The kids whined, "It's cold," and Emma hushed them like contraband. Then one of the boys, Sarah's oldest, squinted at my note. "Mom, it says she's gone." Sarah snatched it, read it fast, and scoffed. "She's bluffing." "No, she's not," Emma whispered. "Look at the dates." A pause, the kind that holds a choice. Finally, Sarah hissed, "Fine, we'll figure something out. But she'll pay for this." She herded the kids back toward the elevator. Their little footsteps echoed down the hall until silence pressed against the door. I exhaled so hard I had to steady myself. They'd still come. They'd still tried. My note wasn't defiance to them. It was an invitation to test me. By the time Katie's car honked downstairs, I was shaking again. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was adrenaline. The drive into the mountains was long, but my friends made it feel shorter. Mike kept complaining about the traffic. Jen handed out protein bars like she was our mother, and Katie turned the radio up too loud on purpose. "You look like someone who just got paroled," Mike said, glancing at me in the rear view. "In a way," I murmured. I told them what happened, every detail. Their laughter was sharp, but not at me, at the absurdity. "They actually dragged the kids to your door?" Jen shook her head. "That's not family. That's unpaid labor they feel entitled to." Katie reached back to squeeze my hand. "Good for you. About damn time." Still, as the snowy peaks came into view, guilt gnawed at me. I pulled out my phone, against my better judgment. 22 missed calls. Messages flashing like emergency sirens. From Mom. "Your behavior last night was disgraceful. We'll talk about this later." From Dad. "Selfish. That's all I'll say." From Sarah. "We can't believe you'd abandon your nephews like this. Hope you're proud of yourself." From Emma. "The kids were crying outside your door asking for you. How could you?" I stopped at that one. The words blurred. Crying outside my door. The image landed like a rock in my stomach. Tyler's small fists knocking. The older 2 asking why Auntie wouldn't open. "Hey," Katie said gently, noticing my face. "Don't go there. That's manipulation, Sarah. They left those kids outside to make you feel guilty. That's not on you." I wanted to believe her. I did. But my heart didn't untangle so easily. As if to prove her point, another voicemail notification buzzed. I pressed play. A child's voice, thin and wobbly. "Aunt Sarah? Are you home? We're cold. Mommy says you'll come back." I slammed the phone face down on my thigh, tears prickling my eyes. Jen leaned forward from the back seat. "That wasn't for you, Sarah. That was for them. They made their kids pawns. Don't fall for it." But the voice stayed lodged in my chest, sharp as glass. When we finally reached the resort, the world shifted. Snow everywhere, thick as silence. Cabins lined with icicles. The smell of pine and wood smoke in the air. "Breathe it in," Mike declared, hauling bags from the trunk. "Freedom." I tried. The air was clean, crisp, unforgiving. It carried the promise of something untouched. Inside my cabin, I unpacked in slow motion. The ski suit looked absurdly bright against the wooden walls. My gloves rested like proof on the nightstand. I turned my phone on silent, shoved it in a drawer, and sat on the bed. For the first time in 30 years, I wasn't where they expected me to be. But guilt isn't logical. It seeped in anyway, whispering, "What if they really are stranded? What if the kids are hurt? What if you're the villain?" I shook my head hard. "No. You said no. You warned them. You're not responsible for the storm they walked into with their eyes open." Outside, laughter echoed. Katie and Jen already heading to the slopes. I wiped my eyes, grabbed my jacket, and followed. If I was going to be haunted, I'd rather it be on snow that belonged to no one. That night, back in my cabin, I couldn't resist. I unlocked my phone, 53 missed calls, dozens of texts. "Sarah, you've ruined everything. Our Hawaii trip is destroyed." Emma, "The kids keep asking where you are." You broke their hearts. Mom. You will regret this. Families don't turn their backs on each other. Dad. You're a shame to us. Don't come crawling back later. No apologies, no acknowledgement, just fury, accusation, blame. My hand stopped shaking. Because suddenly I understood. It wasn't guilt I was carrying. It was theirs. And I'd been trained to hold it so long, I mistook it for mine. I put the phone back in the drawer. The mountain air outside pressed cold against the windows, like a hand daring me to breathe deeper. Tomorrow, I decided, I'd ski until my legs burned. I'd laugh too loud. I'd let the guilt gnaw itself down to nothing. For once, I wasn't babysitting anyone else's mess. For once, I was finally watching over myself. The first morning at the resort felt like waking up inside a postcard. Snow layered every roof, the trees glittered as if someone had dusted them with crushed glass, and the air outside my cabin stung clean in my lungs. I pulled on my new ski suit, zipped it high to my chin, and stared at myself in the mirror. For a moment, I didn't recognize the woman looking back. Someone prepared, someone allowed. Katie banged on my door. "Let's go, accountant. The mountain's waiting." I laughed despite myself and joined them. We strapped on skis and rode the lift higher and higher until the world below looked like toy houses. When I pushed off the slope, the wind howled past my ears, and the ground felt like freedom disguised as powder. Each turn carved away a piece of the weight I'd carried from home. But peace has a way of being interrupted. When we broke for lunch in the lodge, I checked my phone again. Couldn't help it. 40 more missed calls. The messages weren't pleading anymore. They were sharp, jagged. "Sarah, you're pathetic. A real sister wouldn't abandon us like this." Emma. Tyler cried himself to sleep. "You should be ashamed." Mom. "If something happens to the kids, it's on you." Dad. "Ungrateful brat, after all we've done." I stared at the screen, the words blurring until they looked like scratches. Mike leaned over my shoulder and snorted. "They're mad because you didn't fold. That's not your guilt to hold, Sarah." Easy for him to say. He didn't grow up counting how many times his father shook his head in disappointment, or how many times his mother whispered, "Don't be difficult." Still, he was right. I slid the phone into my pocket and let the messages rot there. That night, back in my cabin, memories came in like cold drafts through the walls. I remembered being 16, proud of my first paycheck from the corner store. I'd planned to buy a new jacket, something that hadn't belonged to Sarah first, but Mom said half had to go to help with Sarah's wedding expenses. I handed it over, swallowing the protest that burned in my throat. "Family helps family," she'd said. It had become the chorus of my life. Family helps family. Except help had always meant sacrifice, for me, not for them. I lay in bed, the hum of the heater loud in the quiet, and thought of the years stacked like ledgers. Every weekend swallowed by babysitting. Every plan dismissed because I worked from home. Every breakup or failure met with silence while their dramas consumed the room. The worst part wasn't the labor, it was the erasure. My life was background noise in their story. The next day, I skied again. I laughed when Katie fell on her face, shouted at Mike when he tried to race me, let Jen drag me into the hot tub until our skins steamed in the icy air. For the first time in years, hours passed without me bracing for a phone call. But that night, temptation again. I unlocked the drawer, pulled out the phone. The tone of the messages had shifted. No longer just guilt, now money. From Tom, my brother-in-law. "Do you realize how much this trip cost? Thousands wasted. You should reimburse us." From Sarah. "We're out so much money because of you. This is theft, basically." From Dad. "You cost this family a fortune. Selfish beyond words." My stomach turned. It was always about money in the end, wasn't it? Even love came with a price tag. But then I saw one more voicemail from Emma. I pressed play, bracing. Her voice was brittle. "You've always been jealous. Admit it. You hate that we have families, that we have lives bigger than yours. This isn't about a vacation. It's about you not being able to stand that you're alone." The words hit harder than I expected. Alone. Was that how they saw me? A woman orbiting her family like a satellite, only useful when reflecting their light? I set the phone down, chest tight. Then I looked out the window. Snow kept falling, soft and relentless, blanketing everything, even jagged edges. For the first time, I let myself believe something. Maybe being alone wasn't a curse. Maybe it was a clean slate. On the fourth day, while Mike and Katie tackled the Black Diamond slopes, I stayed behind at the lodge with Jen. She sipped hot chocolate, eyes on me. You're quieter today, she said. I shrugged. Just thinking. About them? Always, I admitted. It's like even when I'm here, they're in the room with me. Jen leaned closer. That's what happens when you've been trained to put them first. But training can be unlearned. You just need practice. Practice saying no? Practice believing it's allowed. Her words sank in deep. I realized then, this trip wasn't just a break. It was a rehearsal for the life I wanted. That night, in my cabin, I turned my phone on one last time. The latest message glared at me. From Sarah. Don't think you're free of us. Family is forever. You owe us. I deleted it, not just from the inbox, from the backup, from everywhere. Then I turned the phone off and slid it back into the drawer, like burying a relic. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was whole. I sat by the window, watching snowflakes blur the glass, and whispered to myself, I don't owe anyone. For the first time in my life, I almost believed it. By the time the resort week ended, my legs ached pleasantly from skiing, my cheeks were raw from cold air and laughter, and my heart felt lighter. Not healed, just less burdened. Driving home, the mountains shrinking behind us, I braced for the storm, waiting on my phone. When I unlocked it, the silence startled me. No fresh messages, no new calls. For a second, I thought they'd given up. But when I pulled into my building's garage, the concierge waved me over with a sympathetic look. Miss Linwood, he said, your family came by several times. They seemed upset. I told them you weren't home. My chest tightened. Did they leave anything? He hesitated. They took down a note from your door. Looked like it upset them. Of course they did. The evidence of my boundary ripped away. I thanked him and went upstairs. My door was bare, no trace of the message I'd taped with shaking hands. Inside, the air was still, but it didn't feel like peace. It felt like the pause before thunder. For a week, nothing. No calls, no texts, no knocks. I told myself the quiet was victory, but I didn't quite believe it. Every night, I half expected to hear footsteps in the hall. Then, on a gray afternoon, it happened. Voices outside my apartment door, low, urgent, too familiar. I looked through the peephole and saw them all. Mom, Dad, Sarah, Emma, standing shoulder to shoulder like a tribunal. Sarah held a printed copy of my note, her fingers gripping it like a weapon. I opened the door before they could knock. Mom's voice hit first, shrill and cracked. How could you do this to us? She waved the note in my face. You framed us as villains to strangers. Do you know what people will think? Dad's jaw was set, his disappointment radiating like heat. Your mother and I missed our vacation because of you. Do you realize what we lost? Sarah's eyes blazed. Thousands, non-refundable flights, hotel deposits, all wasted because you decided to throw a tantrum. Emma's voice wobbled, tears already welling. The kids keep asking for you. How could you hurt them like this? Their words hit like hail, overlapping, sharp, endless. Selfish, ungrateful, arrogant. Over and over, arrogant. As if finally standing up for myself made me guilty of pride, the deadliest sin. I stood in the doorway, letting it wash over me. Years of their anger, their needs, their expectations, all piled like snowdrifts at my feet. When they finally ran out of breath, I spoke, calm, clear. Did you read the whole note? They blinked, thrown off. Sarah frowned. Of course we did. The last sentence, I said it, and read it again. Mom looked down at the page, lips moving silently. Then her face paled. I wrote that I was cutting off contact, I said. The silence after was louder than their shouting. You don't mean that, Mom whispered, her voice suddenly small. I do. Dad scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. Ridiculous is expecting me to live my life on your terms, I said. Ridiculous is treating me like a free babysitter, like my time isn't worth anything. You don't see me as family, you see me as convenient. That's not true, Emma cried. We love you. Really? My voice cracked, not from weakness, but from the sheer weight of truth. When's the last time you called me just to talk? When's the last time you invited me somewhere without needing me to watch kids? When's the last time any of you treated my work like it mattered? They looked away. Their silence was my answer. Mom's tears spilled. We're family. Families stick together. Families respect each other, I said. Families ask before making plans that affect others. Families don't guilt someone into carrying more than their share. Dad's mouth twisted. Maybe we made mistakes, but you're overreacting. This is absurd. Overreacting? I stepped forward, voice rising for the first time. I spent my childhood wearing Sarah's clothes, using Emma's broken phones, giving up half my paycheck for a wedding that wasn't mine. I've spent the last 3 years as your default childcare plan without ever being asked. And you think this is overreacting? Sarah's face softened, but only slightly. Okay, maybe we should have asked first. But you didn't have to disappear. You scared us. I told you exactly where I was going. I told you I was done. You didn't believe me because you never do, because you think my no doesn't count. Emma's voice cracked. We never used you. We thought you enjoyed spending time with the kids. I do enjoy them, I admitted, but not every weekend, not at the cost of my work, my peace, my life. Mom reached for me, desperate. Please, Sarah, we can fix this. We can do better. For a heartbeat, her tears almost broke me. Almost. But then I remembered all the nights I cried alone in my apartment, unheard. All the times I swallowed my needs, while theirs were fed first. I'm tired of being the family afterthought, I said. I'm tired of being useful instead of loved. I'm tired of being needed only when it costs me something. Dad's voice cracked with frustration. But we're your family. This is what families do. No, I said quietly. This is what I've done for you. What have you ever done for me? The silence stretched, long and heavy. No one answered. I pointed toward the elevator. I want you to leave. Mom's sobs filled the hall. Don't say that. We're your blood. Blood isn't enough, I said. Not anymore. They lingered another moment, stunned, as if waiting for me to break first. But I didn't. I stood firm in the doorway, the light from my apartment at my back, their shadows long in the hallway. Finally, they turned. The elevator dinged, doors sliding open like a stage cue. They stepped inside, still muttering, still wounded. As the doors closed, Mom's cries echoed down the hall, fading into silence. I shut my door and leaned against it, chest heaving. My apartment was suddenly too quiet, but also right. For the first time, the balance had shifted. I wasn't the one left standing small in their storm. This time, they were the ones walking away. The hallway confrontation left me hollow but strangely clear. For the first time in years, my apartment felt like mine. No air mattress shoved against the wall. No sticky fingerprints on my keyboard. Just quiet. But quiet doesn't last long when guilt finds new messengers. Within days, my phone lit up with numbers I barely recognized. Aunt Carol, Uncle Jim, Cousin Rachel, each with the same script, rehearsed like a choir. Sweetheart, your mom is heartbroken. Can't you call her? You've made your father look like a fool. He won't say it, but he's crushed. Think of the kids. They're innocent. I listened, I nodded, then I hung up. Over and over, the pattern was clear. They weren't calling for me. They were calling through me, carrying my parents' grief like a contagion. Then came the social media posts, old family photos dug out of albums, scanned and captioned like obituaries. Missing our Nina so much. Love you always, baby sister. Families fight, but love never dies. The comment section swelled with sympathy, little digital arms wrapping around my parents while painting me the villain. Strangers wrote, "She'll come back. She just needs time." But I wasn't gone. I was here. I just wasn't theirs anymore. My birthday arrived in March. For years it had been a formality. Cake with kids smearing frosting on my clothes, gifts of scented candles they picked up last minute. This time was different. Katie booked a table at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights. Jen surprised me with a scarf in a color I'd never dared wear. Mike raised a glass and said, "To Sarah, who finally grew a spine thick enough to carry herself." We laughed until my ribs ached. No kids screaming, no family drama, no guilt weighing down every forkful of food. Just joy. When I returned home, cheeks aching from smiling, the concierge called me over. "This came for you," he said, handing me a glossy box and a bouquet that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Inside the box was an expensive handbag, the kind I'd never buy myself. The card read, "From all of us. Love, your family." The flowers smelled sweet, cloying. I stared at them for a long time before calling a courier. The next morning, the package was delivered back to my parents' house. I didn't want their gifts. They weren't apologies. They were bribes dressed as affection. 4 months passed. No last-minute babysitting requests. No phone vibrating like an alarm clock of demands. Just silence. And in that silence, something grew. I raised my rates with clients, and they agreed. I started saying yes to dinners, to weekend trips, to dates I used to cancel. My apartment began to feel less like a holding cell and more like a home. I noticed small things, how the sun hit my desk at 3 p.m., how my plants leaned toward the light, how the quiet hummed instead of accusing me. I wasn't just surviving without them, I was thriving. But guilt has a long reach. One afternoon, my cousin Rachel called, her voice hushed. "They talk about you every Sunday dinner," she said. "They can't let it go. Your mom cries, your dad rants. Sarah insists you'll apologize eventually. Emma says the kids ask about you every night." My throat tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Rachel said softly, "I think they're scared. Not just sad, scared. Like, they don't know who they are if you're not the one holding everything together." The words sank heavy. Scared. That wasn't power. That was weakness finally showing its face. I thanked her and hung up. That night, I lay awake thinking about the kids. Their laughter, their sticky hugs, their voices on that awful voicemail. My heart ached for them. But then I remembered Tyler spilling juice across my keyboard, deadlines exploding, while my sisters went out for me time. I remembered Sarah smirking. "You're always available." I remembered Emma's tearful accusation. "You're jealous." The ache dulled, the line sharpened. Spring melted into early summer. I met a client for lunch one day, a CEO of a small design firm. She said something that lodged in my chest. "Boundaries aren't walls," she told me. "They're doors with locks. You get to choose who you let in." That night, I stood at my apartment window, city lights flickering like fireflies, and repeated it to myself. Doors with locks. Choose who you let in. The thought carried me into sleep. I didn't know then that the next message from my family wouldn't be an attack, or a bribe, or a guilt trip. It would be something far rarer, something I wasn't sure how to handle. An actual apology. It was a humid July afternoon when the email arrived. My inbox had been quiet all day, just invoices and tax reminders, until Sarah's name appeared in bold. For a long moment, I hovered over it, my pulse loud in my ears. Part of me wanted to delete it unopened. Another part of me, the younger sister who used to hand over her paychecks without complaint, needed to know. I clicked. The email wasn't short. It wasn't rage or guilt or manipulation. It was something else. "Sarah, we've been talking about you a lot these past months. At first it was anger. We were furious, you know that. But as time went on, I started thinking about all the years we leaned on you. How we never asked, just assumed. How we dismissed your work, your life, your time. I didn't want to see it then, but I see it now. We treated you unfairly." I leaned back in my chair, eyes stinging. She admitted it. The words I'd been screaming for decades in silence were finally typed out on a screen. "The kids miss you. Tyler asks if you'll come to his next soccer game. Emma's son still has a drawing he made of you on the fridge. I miss you too. I miss my sister. I can't undo what's been done, but I'm asking if maybe we can start over." By the time I finished reading, my hands trembled. I didn't reply right away. For 3 days, I carried the email like a stone in my pocket. I read it in bed, on the subway, in line at the grocery store. Every time, I felt the same tug. The ache of missing the children, the temptation of believing my family might change. But each time, another voice whispered back, "Remember the silence after Jason left. Remember the slammed wine glasses at Christmas. Remember the voicemail with the child's voice planted there to break you." On the third night, I sat with Katie and Jen at our usual coffee shop. The air smelled of cinnamon and burnt espresso. I showed them the email. Jen skimmed it and snorted. "Finally, an apology. Took them long enough." Katie was quieter, thoughtful. "It's honest," she said. "But the question is, what do you want? Do you want them back in your life?" I stared at the table. "I don't know. I miss the kids. But I don't miss the rest. I don't miss being erased." "Then don't rush," Katie said gently. "They've taken 30 years from you. You're allowed to take your time deciding if they get another minute." Her words sank deep. That night, I sat at my desk with the cursor blinking in a new email. The blank page looked like a cliff edge. Finally, I typed, "Sarah, I appreciate your email. It means more than you know to see you acknowledge what's happened. But I'm not ready for reconciliation yet. I need more time to figure out if I want you all back in my life, and if so, what that would look like. When I'm ready, I'll contact you. Please don't contact me again until then." I read it 5 times before hitting send. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. It wasn't a slammed door. It wasn't an open one either. It was a lock, a choice, mine alone. Days passed, no reply, No calls, no unexpected knocks on my door, just silence. But this silence was different from before. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't accusing. It was space. In that space, I noticed things I'd never allowed myself to notice. The way sunlight painted my living room gold in the late afternoon. The sound of my laugh echoing in my own apartment without being swallowed by anyone else's demands. The strange, delicious possibility that family didn't have to mean captivity. Still, guilt whispered at odd times. When I saw a child at the park tugging at their aunt's sleeve. When I passed a toy store window. When I remembered Tyler's shaky voice on the voicemail. But guilt no longer controlled me. It was just another voice in the room, one I could choose to ignore. One evening, Mike invited us all to his rooftop for drinks. We clinked glasses as the city hummed below. At some point, the conversation turned to families, as it always does. My parents used to use me as the mediator, Jen said. Every fight, every crisis, I was the one stuck in the middle. I finally told them to figure it out themselves. Katie nodded. Mine thought single meant available. I had to miss 2 vacations before they got the point. I listened, realizing something I hadn't dared think before. I wasn't alone in this. I wasn't some defective daughter or selfish sister. I was just someone who finally stopped paying a debt that was never mine. I exhaled, long and deep, watching the city lights flicker. For the first time, the idea of family didn't feel like chains. It felt like a choice, and I was ready to choose carefully. By August, the rhythm of my days had steadied. Work, friends, the occasional date, long walks in the evenings. Silence from my family, no longer pressed against me like a weight. It simply existed, a neutral hum. I almost believed I could live the rest of my life this way, free, unencumbered. Then another email came, not from Sarah this time, but from Emma, shorter, more desperate. Sarah, please. I know Sarah already wrote. I know you asked for space, but the kids won't stop asking. Tyler drew a picture of you yesterday and taped it to his wall. He told me, Auntie will come back when she remembers we love her. I'm begging you, don't punish them for our mistakes. I closed my laptop slowly, heart twisting. They knew the kids were my soft spot, and Emma, always the one to cry at the table, knew how to wield that. That night, I sat at my kitchen counter with a notebook, not to write back, but to write down rules, real ones. If I ever opened that locked door again, it would be on my terms. No assumptions. If they want me to babysit, they ask, and I can say no without a war. No dismissals. My work is work. Typing jokes end here. Respect my time. My vacations are mine. My weekends are mine. My life is mine. Apologies before requests. No pretending the past didn't happen. No skipping straight to need. I stared at the list, the ink bold on the page. For years, I'd been the one expected to bend. But if reconciliation ever came, it would mean they bent too. Weeks passed without me sending it. I went to dinner with Katie, laughed with Mike, helped Jen move apartments. Life kept unfurling, ordinary and sweet. But the idea of those rules sat inside me like a quiet drumbeat. Then, one Sunday evening, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. It was Sarah. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Sarah, I don't expect you to call back. I just wanted you to know, we talked. Me, Emma, Mom, even Dad. About the rules you laid out in your email. About how we treated you. We didn't like what we saw in ourselves. You don't owe us another chance, but if you ever decide to give us one, we'll try to be different, I promise. The message ended there. No demands, no tears, no manipulation. Just words. Uncertain, but real. For a long time, I sat in the dim light of my apartment, listening to it again and again. A week later, I found myself walking past a park near my building. Children were everywhere, shrieking on swings, chasing soccer balls, demanding pushes and piggyback rides. One boy, maybe Tyler's age, waved at his aunt across the playground. The woman waved back, laughing, her whole face lit up. I stood there, heart aching. I missed them. Their messy hugs, their unfiltered questions, even the chaos. But then I remembered the nights of being dismissed, the slammed hands on tables, the guilt piled high as mountains. Did I want my family back? Yes and no. The truth was more complicated. I wanted the children. I wanted the possibility of sisters who saw me, not just used me. I wanted parents who could say, we were wrong, without choking on it. What I didn't want, what I would never take back, was my freedom. So I wrote one final email. Sarah, thank you for your voicemail. I'm not ready to return fully, but I'm willing to consider small steps. If you want me at a family event, you ask. If you want me to watch the kids, you ask, and I'll decide. If anyone dismisses my work again, I leave. I'm not threatening. I'm just done living invisible. If you can respect that, then maybe there's a future for us. If not, then this silence will stay. I hit send. For the first time in months, I didn't shake afterward. Their reply came 2 days later. Sarah wrote simply, "We hear you. We'll try. The kids would love to see you when you're ready. No conditions, no guilt, just space." I didn't rush to answer. I didn't mark a date on the calendar. I just folded the notebook with my rules into a drawer, knowing that this time the lock on the door was mine to control. Whether I opened it or not, that would be my choice. And for once, choice tasted like freedom.